CDL Minor 1 has come to an end, so you know what time it is. It's time to update the CDL Power Rankings. This weekend, we saw a bunch of surprises, a bunch of upsets, and overall was a pretty banger weekend for the first ever CDL Minor. I mean, just looking at the bracket real quick before we head into the rankings, there obviously was upsets. I mean, FAZE winning it all is definitely considered an upset looking at how they were playing before the winter break. Obviously, Ravens making it to the grand finals over a team like OPTIC might be looked at as an upset. Rocker making it to the semifinals is pretty crazy. Overall, honestly, this was a banger weekend of matches. Even though my LA Thieves played bad, I still had a ton of fun watch partying. So thank you to everyone who tuned in, but let's get into the rankings. All right, let's kick it off, and I'm going to show you 12 through 9 all right away because all of these teams actually didn't move in my rankings. This was my 9 through 12 previously before the minor after week 2 a few weeks ago. And surprisingly, or at least maybe I knew what I was talking about, all 4 of these teams were eliminated in the first round of the minor, right? They all lost in their first matchup of the weekend. So all 4 of these teams staying at the exact positions they were in previously, right? They all lost, so no one moves up, no one moves down. I would say right now, these are probably undoubtedly looked at as the 4 worst teams in the game. Maybe you'd mix and match the orders a little bit, but overall, 9 through 12, I'm actually pretty happy with the fact that I don't have to change any of these. But now is where the movement starts, right? The rest of these teams, no spoilers, but the rest of these teams have moved. And I do want to say before I get into them, a couple little caveats and notes that people might want to know. If you don't really care, I guess you could just skip ahead. But number one, just because a team does really good at the minor doesn't automatically mean they're like the number 1 team, right? Just because phase 1 doesn't automatically put them number 1. At the end of the day, this is just online. And just because a team like Thieves or Ultra is bad doesn't mean they automatically drop to the bottom of the board. I mean, as you can see, right, they're clearly not in the bottom 4. So also remember, some of these teams only played 1 game, right? So a team like Ultra that was undefeated or Thieves only lost 1. So they're still 4-1, which is pretty good, but they still did drop in the rankings. And we're just going to get into it, man, so you can see it. At number 8 here, down 1 spot, I do have Cloud9 New York. I think this one was probably pretty obvious. They did get a win over the team right below them in the Vancouver Surge. But they're definitely still showing a bit of struggle. They had a good series versus the Royal Ravens. But overall, I think this is pretty obvious, in my opinion, that C9 would be at number 8. Then at number 7, a team that I feel bad that is down at 7, because honestly, they look pretty solid, but it's just the way the rankings sort of worked out this time. I got Boston Breach down 2 spots. I do think Boston is a top 6 contending team at this point in the year, but just given the other teams that jumped up over them, as you're going to see, and obviously, like I said, I mean, a team like Thieves or Ultra, I think dropping into like the bottom 5 teams would be crazy after only losing 1 match, especially with it being online. So I do have Boston down at number 7. Feels a little bit tough for them, but overall, I mean, they also only played 1 match, so they did only drop 2 spots, which isn't too bad. Then we go up to number 6, and I do have the Toronto Ultra down 4 spots. Like I said, they lost 1 game. It was to the Minnesota Rocker, a team that many people thought they were going to beat. I had Ultra winning the minor in my bracket. I was clearly very wrong. Toronto, I still think is a good team, but clearly every team in the league has its flaws, as I think we've seen this weekend. And Ultra, I mean, falling 4 spots after losing 1 online match feels really, really tough for them. But other teams jumped up, and that leads me to my next one here. Oh, I just scrolled the page. That leads me to my next one here, which is going to be the LA Thieves, also down 4 spots. So our previous 1 and 2 teams falling down to 5 and 6, which I think is pretty fair given everything else. I think they're still probably going to be looked at as some of the best teams as the year progresses, but they both lost matches that they were predicted to win and probably should have won, right? Ultra losing the Rocker, Thieves losing the FAZE. And as you're going to be able to tell, you know, those 2 teams that won are obviously moving up in the board. So let me know what you think about those right now, like Ultra and Thieves dropping this far, but I think it's the most fair way of doing it. But now we get into our top 4, and here is where I think it's going to get probably the most interesting for most people. Like I said, at the end of the day, this is all just online matches, so it's not a LAN just yet, right? If this was Major 1, the rankings would feel a bit more indicative of what actually happened at the Major. But let's just get into it, man. If people are going to disagree with me no matter what I say, at number 4, up 2 spots, I got the Minnesota Rocker. They made it to the semifinals. They were a top 4 team with the minor. I got them as a top 4 team now, right? They were 6 previously. Now they're up to number 4. This team is icy. They know how to keep themselves in series. They push it to game 5. They got their first game 5 loss of the year versus FAZE. So I believe they're 4-1 now in game 5, which is still pretty incredible. Overall, this is just a team that you can't count out in any series. They always find a way to extend it, keep themselves in maps. So Rocker impressed me a ton this week, and they impressed me earlier this year already, but definitely impressed me a lot this weekend as well. Then at number 3, up 1 spot from 4 to 3, I do have OPTIC Texas. OPTIC made the semifinals, right? They obviously, got their revenge on a team like Boston Breach, who beat them previously. I think they undoubtedly have to move up in this list. Yes, they probably, underperformed the expectations a lot of the community set for them, where people thought they were going to be making the grand finals. People thought they were going to be beating Ravens. Everyone was talking about how they were slamming Ravens in scrims, and then obviously the real match comes around and Ravens get it done. So OPTIC up, though, to number 3. I think it's undoubtable they're one of the best teams in the game right now. And especially when you consider the fact that this was their first time losing with their new roster with HAVOK. They were undefeated in SND up until the Ravens. I definitely just think OPTIC is still one of the top 3 teams in the game. Then we get into our top 2. And this is where I already know people are going to be mad. But I have FaZe at 2 and Ravens at 1. And let me explain before you get mad. Number 1, FaZe is up 6 spots, bro. FaZe was at 8 well, I guess it's not last week because there wasn't any matches for like the last 4 weeks, but FaZe was at 6 in the last rank, or at 8 in the last ranking. Now they're up to number 2. So right there for the FaZe fans that are gonna be mad they're not my number 1, that is an amazing jump. Like, that is a really, really high jump. It's undoubtable FaZe have gotten back into form. The reason I have Ravens 1 over FaZe is because they were already number 2 last week, right? Like, Ravens were already 2nd. And they came 2nd at this minor, right? They obviously got a couple good wins under their belt. They still only have 1 loss on the year. So for that reason, I still think it's fair in a power ranking like this, that's not just supposed to be a copy and paste of a bracket that happened in the previous weekend. I'm still giving Ravens the nod at number 1. FaZe, on the other hand, they looked incredible. You also got to look at the fact that FaZe won 4 matches this weekend. They were 1-3 coming into this. They're now 5-3. So that's a big part into, of course, why they jump up so far, in my opinion. And also, I know FaZe just beat Ravens in the grand final. So if you really want to put them over, it's totally fine. Ravens also 3-0'd FaZe earlier in the year. So they're even at this point. So I don't think a 1-2 position in this way is unfair. But yeah, man, this is my power rankings. You guys let me know. I'm sure there's FaZe fans who are already mad they're not number 1. But anyone who, with some reasonable train of thought, is going to be pretty happy with the fact that their favorite team went from 8 to 2 in a single weekend. That's pretty incredible. But you let me know. LAT down 4 spots does not feel good for me, but it's very well deserved. They did not look good against Atlanta FaZe. And yeah, these are the rankings. We'll see how it plays out, and as I update these next Monday after next week's matches. So hopefully you enjoy. Subscribe for more CDL content, and I'll see you all in the next one.